For all my friends out there who trade Forex, I'm sure you've probably, if you look at the US dollar at all, you've seen that it is on a super strong downtrend right now. Today, we actually just got lower underneath this significant structural low that we just pointed. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about some of the major US dollar crosses, and we're going to talk about potentially what's next, some trade ideas, and some things to think about when trading these USD pairs. Things like gold, the euro, and the pound, all trading against the US dollar, have a lot of, they're being impacted by this US dollar move. So let's go ahead and talk about it, talk about some things that are setting up, and we'll get into it right now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick. I talk about trading and investing, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe down below and give this video a thumbs up if you want me to make this kind of content more often. I usually use likes to kind of gauge what kind of content people want to see the most of, and then I make that type of content. So when we're looking here at the US dollar, we're actually looking at DXY. This is the US dollar currency index. Now, the interesting thing here is this DXY is trading against, it's kind of like a conglomerate of all the different major currencies and how they fare against the US dollar. So as you can see, we've seen a lot of decline in the US dollar here over the last few months, actually a pretty substantial one. So if we zoom out, you can see that the US dollar has been relatively strong since 2018. We've seen a lot of upswing, and now we've given up a lot of those gains on the US dollar as it weakens against a lot of other currencies. But what does this mean, and what does this kind of set up for some of the other currencies out there? Well, what you can see is we are breaking underneath a pretty significant structure of support. And so at first glance, this is definitely bearish. But I do want to caution the US dollar bears just to be careful, just because although things can get very overbought and they can keep going, things like Bitcoin, things like, stocks that get too inflated and then they come down hard, it can actually happen the other way as well. So we want to be careful that as this thing sells off, we don't want to be the last one to sell right before some sort of strong rally. So I'm going to give you guys my opinion, my piece on this when it comes to the US dollar. I think that the US dollar is in essence, it's been a safe haven currency for a long period of time. A lot of times investors move their money into the US dollar during times of uncertainty. Other things like the Swiss, the Swiss franc, the yen, right? Those are some other highly risk off currencies. People put their money in those currencies during times of fear. And as we kind of recover, the US dollar has taken a serious hit, which kind of makes sense, right? People are moving their money back into those riskier investments like stocks and other things like that. But as we look here and we are breaking underneath, again, I don't want to be the last one to sell, but it does, from a technical standpoint, look like it has some bearish room here to grow or to go lower, basically. If we actually move over to something like, for example, EURUSD, the most heavily traded financial instrument in the entire world, not just Forex, not just stocks, but everything, right? This is the most heavily transacted upon currency pair as well as just financial instrument. We see it breaking past all-time highs here, or not all-time highs, but highs for the last several months here. We've been in a strong downtrend. It's kind of a flip of the chart we just looked on that DXY, right? This one has actually been down for a long period of time and is now showing a lot of recovery. We're seeing a lot of strength come into the euro. And so there are some questions that people have. Well, where do you think this thing goes? And I think to really understand the caliber, the scale to this move, we might have to look at some of the higher time frames, even looking at this weekly chart. So with that said, we are coming into an interesting point of resistance being right around here. So this right around that 1.2 level, right? That's a pretty significant level of resistance purely because two main things. One, it's a big round number, and a lot of times big round numbers by themselves can be levels of support and resistance. Two, we had a pretty significant point of sell-off here before on a strong rise. So you can actually see that history shows us that we had a strong rise on this one just to find rejection here. We are seeing a strong rise right now. And what you'll notice is that a lot of times those strong rallies can last for a substantial amount of time, and then they end at some point and they come crashing back the other way pretty hard. So we want to be careful of, not getting caught in one of those moves. So as we move higher on EURUSD, the question remains, is this the topping point, or do we have room to run? And honestly, I think we might have some room to make a push up to that 1.2 level. So for those short-term bulls, I think there's actually some room to run. But I think that it's very, very risky to just be buying this thing at the highs, anywhere near the top of a strong move like this, right? Similar to how you don't want to be the last one to sell or the last one to buy in any trend, right? And so a lot of times the best way to counteract that is to wait for some sort of pullback. It's to wait for some sort of key structural break, which, to be fair, we are back above that significant high, which is a big point. So it is something to think about. But again, just being cautious. And for me, the better setups out there are looking for those pullbacks that inevitably do happen in trends, even in strong uptrends or downtrends. There are plenty of times where we see pullbacks, right? And so looking for pullbacks could be of interest. Now, we're pretty far away from this level here that we've mentioned before, so we may never see that pullback for some time. However, there are some other pullback zones that we could think about, such as this one here, where we basically got a pretty good structural support bounce off of that. That may have been the pullback, right? But a lot of times waiting for something like this, there's another one here that I'd be interested in as well. So a pullback to this structural point that we just bounced off of or broke out of could actually be a pretty interesting short-term bullish setup. So if we drop it to the 4-hour chart, you'll see it probably even better. We can just zoom in a little bit here, and we've got this structural level here where we basically found a short-term double top, and we've just broken out of this level here. So we had resistance, resistance, and now we are showing strength. So I think could run up, make its move to the upside, and then looking for those pullback short-term buys could be a trade to think about. But again, still not interested personally in being super bullish on the euro just yet. I'd rather wait for things to get, you know, a little bit sold off and a little bit more pulled back. That's my personal interest when coming into a trend like this, right? GBPUSD also making its move to the upside, also breaking out of that kind of recent structural level here. So we've got the supportive level here, but we also have now this level potentially going to act as support. So as we break through this level of resistance, if we can get a nice clean close, it might be something like this, and look for that continuation off of that strong momentum that we do see on the pound dollar. Again, similar story to Euro USD in the sense that, okay, this thing has had a really good run. We don't want to be the last one to buy, but pound dollar is a little bit different because this one is not quite as overextended in my view. We have seen some nice push to the upside on pound dollar, but it's not nearly as much as that, again, that Euro USD crazy, crazy strong run up on that weekly chart. So that is my view on these two pairs. Still bullish side to come, I think, or potential, but looking for bigger pullbacks and looking for opportunities in that way if I was to get long on them. So I'm not long on these things at the time being. Let's talk about gold as a reference to the dollar. We do see gold headed back to structure highs, or at least coming close to it. So as we near that high point once again, it does make sense, right? Because again, the US dollar is weakening, so it makes sense that gold is rising in relation to that. A lot of times these two things counteract each other. They go the opposite way from one another. So something to think about is that US dollar weakening is a bullish signal for gold, and I think that the big thing to look out for here is a potential retest of this, right? So on the shorter time frames, for those of you guys who are trading it, there may be, you know, on that 1 hour chart, something short term to look for a potential retest of those highs. Right? In fact, it may not be valid by the time this video gets edited and uploaded, but looking for pullbacks and looking for structure points on this 1 hour chart could be significant. So something like that, that trend line there, you've got kind of a nice channel going up here on the 1 hour chart, right? Price basically bouncing back and forth, so looking for opportunities there. If we were to see some sort of pullback to this point, could be some opportunity to look for that run up back to, again, that 2000 mark and above, or 2050 mark, where we saw that previous top. So might be interesting to look out for on gold. Just a couple points that I am interested in on this chart. So when we're looking at gold, again, just to recap, it will usually go up when the US dollar is going down because people are putting their money into something outside of the US dollar, and a lot of times that means they are pushing it into gold or something else. So just my view on the US dollar. I hope that this was helpful to you guys. If it was, make sure to like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks so much, and we'll see you back in the next video. Thank you.